Welcome, everyone, to today's Town of Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. To start with, we have a message from Governor Healy in the person of Steve.
Please note, this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, including the use of AI note-taking apps, please notify the chair. No?
We do have one person in the waiting room, Stephen Buckley, who
Okay.
would like to,
Mr. Buckley, did you come in, or are you still outside?
no, in the, online waiting room.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right, that waiting room. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 28, 2025 signing of Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 20, until June 30th, 2027, this meeting of the Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 590-534-7 #, or join the meeting online via the Microsoft Teams link in the posted agenda. While this meeting is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV Xfinity Channel 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. In accordance to the town policy, the public can speak to any issue or hearing or business item on the agenda during the meeting after being recognized by the chair. For those of you who may be new to this process, we have some procedural steps. We're first going to take a roll call of the board members to establish a quorum. We're going to ask if any citizen or non-board member participating in the call via the phone for their name and their phone number so that they can be identified. The hearing notice will be read by staff. You or your representative present the appeal or application. That's going to be Penrose today. The chair may read or summarize all letters received by the board. Anyone wishing to comment on the application may speak for up to 3 minutes. Those present in the meeting room will be recognized first, followed by anyone online. Applicant may rebut the written or oral comments. The board members may ask questions. The board will then vote to close the public hearing. We may or may not do, I guess we have to do that today. And enter into deliberations.
Yeah.
The board will vote to continue the deliberations to a date certain, which is scheduled for 8/20/26. All votes will be taken by roll call, and we're going to have, who's going to vote today?
I'll get to that.
Okay. And at the end of the meeting, we're going to close the meeting via verbal confirmation and note the time of the adjournment.
All right, thank you, Steve. So first off, incidentally, I should explain, as you know, Ms. Fenwick is the chairman during our 40B deliberations. Ms. Fenwick has a lot of very high-powered clients, and one of them needed her assistance today. She will come when she's done. I know she thinks that we take precedence, but not really. So anyway, so you have to put up with me for in the time being. Meanwhile, we need to, Mr. Veach.
Yes, David H. Veach, and I approve of this meeting format.
Ed Acton, and I approve.
Paul C. Semple, I approve of this format.
David S. Nixon, I approve.
Stephen D. DeBoer, and I approve.
Lee Hovey, I approve.
Okay, to begin with, Mr. Singer, I think we'll have you start, and then I'll read the correspondence after you've had your presentation, if that's acceptable with you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Oh,
She has to read that.
time's up.
I'll go sit down. It's going to be a while.
All right.
Application number 25-077, Penrose LLC, 15 Milk Street, 16th floor, Boston, Mass. 02109. The properties are located at 0 Meeting House Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessors Map 4E, Block 11A, Lot AB, owned by the Town of Chatham, and 87 Meeting House Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessors Map 4E, Block 12, Lot 23, owned by Corey Baker. The applicants are requesting the grant of a comprehensive permit under Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, Sections 20 through 23, and 760 CMR 56, for the construction of 42 dwelling units in 8 residential structures and a maintenance building. The applicants are requesting the grant of various waivers from regulations promulgated by the Chatham zoning bylaw and other local regulations. The combined properties contain 4.12 acres in the R60 zoning district. This was continued from August 14th, September 4th, October 16th, November 13th, December 10th, 2025, and January 15th, February 5th, March 5th, May 7th, June 4th, and July 16th, 2026.
Thank you. For the record, Andrew Singer, attorney on behalf of the applicant. With us in the audience and also online are members of both Penrose and the consultant team for questions if you have them. Our presentation today, want to go over, as our final presentation, we wanted to go over the supplemental submission we submitted dated July 30th last week. For the record, the first part of that is we submitted a memorandum that responded point by point to the items and general conditions that were discussed by the planning board in their last letter to you. And so in that memorandum, we have a bullet list for what the planning board had raised, and then in bold, we have the applicant's response, and went through literally every one of them. We had discussed some of them our last session with you, but this gives you all of them. I just wanted to go over a couple of the highlights, or a few of the highlights from that. And I wanted to talk first about the entrance drive. And the entrance drive, which is, starting there on Meeting House and going up to approximately a bit before where the crosswalk is that you see, that is, as you all know, going to be a separate lot. There was some confusion and there was some discussion back and forth early on about whether it was going to be a public right-of-way or just a town-owned piece of land under the grant that was issued to the town to look at access for the property. And it is not going to be a right-of-way. This is something we also discussed with town council, who I know is online. It is not going to be a right-of-way. So it is not subject to the planning board's rules and regulations on roads. It's not a road. It's just a lot. The lot is going to be the lot upon which driveway access will be for the development, and that is because of the grant because the grant required, or requires, that the money be used for a town-owned piece of land. It doesn't have to be a right-of-way, it has to be a town-owned piece of land. So that's what we're proposing, and ultimately what we're asking you to approve from a land division point of view, quote unquote, is a 2-lot approval not required plan. So you'd be approving cutting this lot that's in front of you into 2 lots, the small lot and then the bigger lot. And it's actually also, because 87 Meeting House Road is now part of it as well, you'll be erasing that lot line. So it's a reconfiguration of what are 2 lots now into 2 lots, but they're going to be 2 different lots. So that was in the memorandum, just wanted to highlight that. In addition, there was discussion about retaining walls and grading and fall protection and shoulders, and Horsley Winton's here, and we can get into more detail if you want. I know it's been reviewed at length, but we added that into the memorandum as well. Something new that we had noted last time is that in response to a request the planning board had asked, and then one of you had also asked about that, Penrose is agreeing to install an additional short section of timber guardrail to match the guardrail on the south side of the driveway in between the bus shelter and the road pavement, so that there would be some additional separation and safety for children who are going to be using that bus shelter. And I just wanted to reiterate, we said this last time, but although Penrose has noted that there could be up to 25 persons under the age of 18 in the community, they will not all be using the bus shelter at the same time. Some are going to be under school age, and then the 3 different levels of school all have pickups and drop-offs at different times. Parents drive children to school. So while there could be a maximum of 25 children or so in the community, they're not all ever going to be school age and/or using the bus stop. So it's going to be a much less intense use of the bus shelter, but it is there so that they can use it when they are going, whether it's elementary school, middle school, or high school. As far as the issue of the connector path out to the Cape Cod Rail Trail and the discussion of sidewalks, obviously you've spent a great deal of time hearing testimony and review about that. The applicant continues to submit that the connector path that you see here is the best option here. It is the most efficient, it is the safest, and it is the most environmentally protective as well. The applicant believes that that they're providing, which is an amenity to their residents, which is an amenity that is above and beyond what market rate developments are required to do in Chatham, is, as I said, the safest and best course for this. And you've heard, in addition to just us saying it, you have heard extensive traffic and civil engineering testimony on this. It's also been peer-reviewed by the peer reviewer that the town obtained for all of these issues. And the peer reviewer has accepted the plans as meeting all the requirements. There were little issues here and there, and things have been working out between Horsley Witten and Ty and Bond. So in these circumstances, we're asking you to approve the plan that's before you on the screen, and we believe that requiring an additional sidewalk beyond the one that the applicant has agreed to build, and we discussed this before, it is on the other side of Meeting House Road, and it will connect up the rail trail parking lot and swing around the curve to the Route 28 sidewalk and crosswalk that's down there. In the land disposition agreement, Penrose has agreed to build that sidewalk, and that is part of what is going to take place. But requiring an additional sidewalk under the circumstances that we've outlined today and in all the testimony we've provided to you, we believe would be uneconomic, would not be consistent with local needs, which is the legal standard you're looking at, and would be grounds for an appeal. So we believe that what is before you is the best, safest, and most environmentally protective. It will, and I realize Ginny's not here right now, but it is the option that will save the most trees. And that is something that I know is very important to her. Finally, on the memorandum itself, wanted to note that all lighting is going to be downward casting, dark sky compliant, and it's going to meet all the regulations. And in addition, after discussion with the board, the applicant has gone back and agreed that they can and will install a generator for the management space in Building 1. That is on the left side of Building 1, which is the second building in on the right. And so they're going to be providing that as well. Wanted to briefly touch on, before closing, the waivers. So we submitted a revised waiver list last week, and I actually submitted, yes, Mr. Nixon?
Yeah, we're going to discuss the waivers, but I think we should wait for you until we get to that point in the meeting.
Absolutely, yes.
If you don't
And I
mind.
was going to suggest that at some point we should go through them one by one.
Exactly, that's what we plan to do.
All right, then I'm going to skip them for now, and yeah, that's what we anticipated
Okay.
as well. So, all right, we'll do that. In that case, in closing, we've been before you for many, many months. We believe that the project, as it has evolved, incorporating the additional land, spreading the buildings out, adding additional amenities in the middle of the property, it reduces density of the overall development. We're removing one dwelling that exists, and the 42 units will remain, now spread over additional land area. So density is reduced. This is, as we ask you to continue, as you begin your deliberations later, this is a project where the applicant was invited to apply to the town along with other applicants. It was on publicly owned land that was accepted and approved for development through a public RFP process. So the applicant didn't come to the town and say, where can we put housing? The applicant was responding to a town's request and was chosen through the public process to develop this lot for affordable housing. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts has also looked at this project and has issued a project eligibility letter for this project stating that it meets the requirements of funding and other aspects of Chapter 40B, the Comprehensive Permit Law. when you begin your deliberations, and when we be talking about the waivers in particular, you're conducting a balancing test. And you're conducting that test to determine if the project is consistent with local needs. We strongly believe that the project is consistent with local needs, and we, at the appropriate time, well, I'm asking you now, and when you do vote, we're asking you to vote to approve the project with appropriate conditions so that it may move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Okay, I'll now read the correspondence that we have received recently. First is a note from David Farrell. He writes on August 6th, I went to Nauset Green yesterday. The two windows on the gable end I first presented to the ZBA and Penrose in November 2025 did finally have new trim yesterday, although other siding issues there do not seem to have been addressed. The attached photo I took yesterday shows two other windows which have been missing trim for weeks. As I displayed at the last Meeting House Road ZBA meeting. Why couldn't these have been fixed at the same time as the gable? And he submitted a picture to go with that. Then we have a note from Ann Timpson, and she just made it under the one-page limit. I and my family have owned property in Chatham for 74 years. I'm writing concerning the upcoming vote on Thursday, August 6th, pertaining to approval or disapproval of a comprehensive permit for the latest Penrose development plan for the Meeting House Road affordable housing project. I and what I believe to be the majority of town residents are clearly opposed to moving forward with this project. In May, town meeting voted against the funding request from Penrose for $100,000 additional funds. Penrose actually asked for $500,000, and they only awarded them $100,000 in the article, and there was much unfavorable discussion at that meeting. Prior to that, many town residents filled out a survey asking for a nonprofit affordable housing development and low density. On a freezing cold day in 2021, during COVID, with town meeting attendees sitting outside in mud and rain at the very end of the day, an article passed to prohibit town voters from participating in a newly formed Affordable Housing Trust Board. The new board, was given the statutory right to purchase property, hire contractors, engineers, designers, and administer affordable housing development in Chatham without any town meeting future approvals. At the time of the vote, there was only a few die-hard residents left in a field of mostly empty chairs. A member of the Finance Committee spoke and said the process of affordable housing in Chatham needed to be fast-tracked, and so it has. And we, the voters, have been essentially eliminated from the process. When power is in the hands of a few and we are not permitted to vote on issues at town meeting, we tend to lose our freedom of speech and our personal liberties begin to be eroded. We're depending on you to speak for us and focus on the fact that this most recent plan still does not address substantial safety issues that continue to be brought up by both your board and the public who attend the meetings, speak, and email on the issue. There are a host of safety concerns, but the addition of two parking spaces directly in the only access in and out of the development presents a flagrant danger to pedestrians, bikers, and autos. Backing out onto the only access to 8 buildings and 42 housing units is not a responsible engineering plan for the traffic of any kind. As far as I know, Penrose has never appealed a CBA decision to the state of Massachusetts. They have not set that precedent. Penrose, in their initial negotiations with a handful of town officials, stated that they could not bid on the Meeting House Road site unless they were assured they would get an agreement on the Main Street Buckley property as well. They clearly stated that they could not make a profit on the Meeting House Road property alone. The best resolution for all involved, town and Penrose, would be a disapproval vote allowing Penrose the opportunity to back out of a project they clearly never wanted to be in the first place. Thank you for enduring service to our community. Then we have a note. This is from Linda and David McElroy in South Chatham. Without question, Chatham needs affordable and attainable housing for its workforce. Too many Chatham workers are having to commute long distances because neither affordable nor attainable housing is available. This being said, such housing design and density should be in keeping with the character of Chatham, but currently the Penrose design most certainly is not. Once the housing design is approved and built, it will be here in South Chatham for a long time. Therefore, we urge the board to carefully consider all the design and density elements before offering its approval. There are multiple design flaws, but we will focus on one in particular. Penrose has not been willing to revise their design to include sidewalks from their new project entry driveway along Meeting House Road to Route 28. And this is a huge safety risk to potential residents who will be walking along the busy road to nearby bus transportation. Meeting House Road is extremely busy, and during the past winter of 26, when there was significant snowfall, for about 6 weeks, there were continuous snowbanks on this road and no plowed shoulder. This would have required residents, including children, to walk on the roadway to get from the proposed development to Route 28. In the winter, it becomes dark a few minutes before 4, which is a time during which pedestrian traffic would be expected. And it should be noted that a pathway to the rail trail would not address the need for a safe pedestrian route to Route 28. Before approving this design, Penrose should be required to agree to installing and maintaining a sidewalk along Meeting House Road from their development to Route 28 for the safety of the residents, including safety of the children and those who are mobilely impaired. We do wonder if the lack of a sidewalk puts the project in violation of ADA requirements. We strongly encourage this Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals to follow this through with this requirement before approval. This is merely one of the multiple design flaws in what is a proposal which blatantly ignores the character of the neighborhood in which it would be constructed. Whereas the board to withhold approval until a design is submitted which corrects the many flaws in the current proposal. Then we have a note from J.P. Burke, who is the attorney for Gloria Hicks. I represent Gloria Hicks, owner and resident of 95 Meeting House, a direct abutter to the property. As of this date, no agreement has been reached with the applicant to alter or surrender my client's right-of-way over the property. Accordingly, the applicant has not achieved the required control of the property to construct the project as proposed, and therefore the application should be denied. This is a note on July 17th from Bill Cullinane, 98 Riverview Drive. I support the plan for affordable housing. I have been a longtime resident of Chatham, and throughout that time, we've talked this issue into the ground. The issue of affordable housing will not be solved by talk. We need action. The range of excuses rivals the number of brides of many celebrity males. Chatham has the resources. All that is lacking is empathy and resolve. Please share this with the appropriate decision makers. There's a note from Lou Hybe, Chatham. August 2nd, close study of town meetings of 3, 03, 05, 06 warrant articles and minutes that dealt with affordable housing issues reveals tremendously important insights that are relevant to today's meeting. We've been repeatedly told that the 03 town meeting voted unanimously for the 10% goal. The article voted on did not mention 10%. It referred to the omnibus comprehensive plan that included 8 different chapters, e.g. community facilities, economics, human resources, and so forth. The 10% was buried in a 93-page attachment that most certainly hardly anyone read. The plan decried development forces which deteriorate Chatham's uniqueness and undermines its character and quality of life. New or rehabilitated affordable housing should fit into the existing neighborhood to neither change the appearance or a location which would identify them as affordable. This is exactly the opposite of Penrose project. Study of these 3 town meetings makes it clear that the town wanted, was told that, and was expected that affordable housing would be achieved through developments with 10% of the homes or units being affordably mixed in with open and less fair market value homes or units in the same neighborhoods. Again, exactly the opposite of this Penrose project. The 06 town meeting was not told that the mass law that allowed adoption of affordable housing trusts also removed towns' rights of self-rule and self-determination that towns had had for over 200 years. There was no requirement to invite Penrose. There was no requirement to invite Penrose. A very small group of individuals did this by publishing a request for a proposal in the public registry. 4 people with 6 votes determined Penrose was the winner. Towns presented win, 16% of case appealed. Towns that appeal higher to the land court have had better success rates. There are no financial, legal, or state funding consequences for not meeting 10%. There's more than enough zoning-related problems with this project to write a book But this is also about much longer issues of American and Chatham's democracy rights of home rule and self-determinations. Our responsibilities are to the citizens of Chatham. Please take this opportunity to demonstrate solidarity with your fellow citizens and vote no on this project. Then we received a note quite late from Elaine Gibbs. It only came in this morning. Beyond the time frame that we have for presenting things, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. I will not read it, and I'm not going to condense it. I will give Ms. Gibbs an opportunity later on to discuss it if she wishes to, within the 3-minute limit. Then we did get 3 letters that were extended beyond our time that I went through and tried to condense them into what, in their words, they were trying to convey. They might feel that I'm not doing them justice, and during the discussion period, if they wish to get up and speak for up to 3 minutes about them, they're certainly welcome to, but I'm going to attempt. The first came from Judy Patterson, and it had to do with, now I've got to find my notes, had to do with what was going on, with the Penrose's handling of issues that have arisen at their project in Orleans. And out of this letter, I took the following. Penrose does not seem to care about tenants, safety, dignity, accessibility, or fairness. They care about control. They care about rules when they can use them against tenants who speak up. They care about making the life harder for people who already live there, especially disabled tenants and low-income tenants who cannot just pack up and leave. Then the second letter was from Carol Gordon. And again, hers is a multi-page letter. And I felt that the following stated what she wants to say. The moral standard should be whether the projects offer a genuinely welcoming, safe, and well-designed environment, one that residents can be proud to call home. Guaranteed that not one member of the Select Board, Planning Board, ZBA, or Affordable Housing Trust would ever allow their children or grandchildren to live at Route 137 development as designed because of the hazards. That's the test. Chatham should walk away from Penrose and find a nonprofit that prioritizes residents' safety, home ownership, responds to community input, and builds something Chatham can be proud of. Again, that was my condensing of Judy's. Then we also got one from Mike Schell, and his was only 1 page too long, and it really is encouraging us to kind of get this going and finish it up. He writes, I'm hopeful that you will be able to move expeditiously to developing conditions of approval that document the understandings with Penrose reached over the past many months, and thus bring the process to an admirable and successful conclusion. Moreover, and once again, I thank you in advance for your service and this endeavor. So that is that's the extent of, I think, okay? So let's go back to Ms. Gibbs. Are you online? I was going to give you an opportunity to condense your letter, if you'd like, within 3 minutes. I don't see you later. Maybe you show up later on. Okay, then I'll give the opportunity starting with Judy Patterson. Do you want the mic for 3 minutes, or what I said enough for you? No? Okay. How about Carol Gordon? Was what I said enough, or would you like to say some more? She's looking like she's going to say some more. We'll give you 3 minutes more. I tried to make sense of your letter in a short period. I might not have done it justice, in which case I apologize.
You did just fine.
Okay?
Thank you.
3 minutes.
It was from the You Guessed It, so a lot of people here have already read it. And so I was, the board, I was going to say this a lot later, but we'll do it now. Your board consists of intelligent, reasonable citizens of Chatham, and surely you've heard the concerns of the people over and over again. There was such concern over the safety over the Kroll Road project. People turned out, and at Kroll Road, we found out that there were hardly any, if any, accidents there. And I'm wondering about the concern for the safety about Route 137, where there have been accidents, and it certainly will be more with children walking and biking down Route 137. So I would hope you would take that into consideration. And to turn a blind eye to all the concerns that you heard from the people is just irreprehensible. I just think that, we've said so much, and we've had substantial backup to everything we've said. And it's not that we don't want affordable housing. We just feel that for speaking for myself and maybe others, that Penrose, we just don't feel that Penrose is the right company to do this. So it's yes to affordable housing, but no, unfortunately, to Penrose. So thank you.
Thank you. Mike Shell, did you find my reading your last paragraph sufficient for you, or did you want a little more time?
I don't need much more time, but you did a fine job. You got my conclusion. That is what I want to convey to you. But I do want to just mention, it's been almost, we're 10 days short of 1 year of this hearing. You have absolutely vindicated your responsibilities 6 ways to Sunday in terms of investigating every aspect of this project, all of the elements that are part of your responsibility to look at. You've listened to the public. You've taken into account the pluses, the minuses. From my point of view, what you got down to and was evident in your last meeting is the whole sidewalk question. That's a resolvable issue, I think. You will resolve it, I'm sure, I'm confident. But I do want to say simply that that is the only thing you have been left with after masticating this 60 times over. And so thank you very much for that. And as I said, I hope you'll bring this to a successful conclusion.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to go back to Elaine Gibbs. Have you appeared?
She has.
No?
Yes, she's
Oh, she
online.
did? Oh, great. Did you hear what I said about your letter? It just got here too late, so I didn't have time to make it a little shorter. But we'll give you 3 minutes if you'd like to discuss it.
Ms. Gibbs, the chair summarized your letter, and he's offering you 3 minutes if you would like to expand on it.
Excuse me. I think Elaine is having problems with her voice today.
Well, that was another party heard from, so there you go. Okay, I'm just going to take 1 second to talk to Ms. Fenwick.
Mr. Chair, Elaine is muted, so she just has to unmute herself if she would like to speak.
Thank you. I don't know how I'm going to consolidate this, but I will give it a shot. It's time for the ZBA to be ruthlessly objective and walk away from this project. When Penrose has effectively told you their bottom line is more important than doing it right, believe them. By their own admission, Meeting House is topographically challenged. They repeatedly admitted they never would have bid on it had it not been combined with 1533 Main Street to make it financially attractive for them. Meeting House is a throwaway. No staking has ever been done, so we could see the boundaries and how much clearing would be done. No disclosure by Penrose of the purchase price of 87 Meeting House and where cost savings and construction will be needed. No basements for storage and heating efficiency because of cheap slab construction. No generators to warm units during power outages, no place to go in the area to get warm. No elevators, no secondary egress routes from second floors in the event of fires. Virtually no usable common area green space, no private green space for families, no decent play areas for middle school kids, no full-time management on site, no grocery stores, no doctors, no pharmacy, and no bank requiring cars for very basic needs and necessities. No assigned or guest parking, no method of monitoring or enforcement of illegally parked visitor cars. Residents coming home from shift work will have no place to park with no overflow parking anywhere without walking. No lease specifically for this property has ever been provided with tenant rules and regulations. No list of the full-time staff positions that will be presented at each of the two properties with the hours, as well as staff that will be shared with other Penrose properties, and their locations have never been provided. Verbal promises are not sufficient. Quality of life and safeguard for those living there, especially children, should be Penrose's first priority. Knowledge of potential hazards and failure to act reasonably to prevent them can be legally considered negligence and reckless disregard for health and safety. That would apply to Penrose for developing the project and Chatham for approving it. The legal bar is simple. When any reasonable person should have known the dangers, was advised of them and ignored them. We have no copy of Penrose liability policy or the town of Chatham's liability policy has ever been requested or provided. If I didn't know better, I'd think Penrose has never done a project before. Vague promises have been made, but unless they make conditions and reduce it to writing from Penrose, it's meaningless and unenforceable, and it will never happen.
Ms. Gibbs, you have 10 seconds left.
Okay. Situational ethics are rampant here. When people make ethical decisions, only one convenient. We can either be a model for affordable housing on the Cape or the poster child for what not to do. Thank you. I apologize for my voice.
So I'll turn the meeting back over to our 40B chairman, Ms. Fenwick, who is here.
Thank you, everyone, for waiting for me. Mr. Singer, did you want to have an opportunity to make comment on any of the letters that were read or comments from?
Well, I think you're still in the middle of public input.
Yes,
That was the last one.
those were just the letters that, the people who wrote letters that were over a page
okay.
long
I thought that-
had the opportunity to speak, so now we're opening it up to the rest of the public.
But he could do that then or at the end,
Okay.
whatever you want.
So you'd like to wait till the end?
We'll
Okay.
wait.
Yes, that's what I would assume. Okay, so we now can take comments from those of you that are here and for those of you online. Okay?
You want them in the middle?
Mr. Messina?
Hi, Frank Messina, South Chatham. There's obviously a lot of discontent, relative to the project, but it'll probably be discontent no matter what happens. For this scope, this size of development in South Chatham, it's kind of a small place, and from our point of view, and it's going to change a lot. Personally, I'm not too unhappy with the site plan on how they've laid it out, especially with the purchase of additional property. Kind of changes it. It's back from the street. There's a lot of issues relative to the sidewalk. I know I've tried to get sidewalks built on both sides of the street for years, and we were lucky enough to get the cross hatching and the signals, to get across 28. The sidewalk is on the north side in one side, then it slips to the south side. So it's a problem. And there's no question there's going to be a problem there, children, et cetera, in the future. It's just a dangerous intersection. Quite honestly, the town's worried about Queen Anne Road. There should be a light at that intersection, something just to stop the traffic, especially in the summer. In my 2 minutes left, I guess I'd like to say that, thank you very much for what you've done. You've been handed a problem with this so-called 40B, and I think the town of Chatham realizes that I don't know if there's going to be any more affordable housing in Chatham because of these two projects. And I think the way to change that, to get the public back, is to change the process up front. I mean, the fact that this RFP was submitted with very little anything defined in terms of the design and the scope of project. It was wide open. You can drive a truck to that RFP. And things were kind of, in my opinion, they were moved too quickly. Hopefully the Affordable Housing Committee in the future is going to be a little bit more definitive when they put out the RFP. And there are a lot of people out there who want to build this kind of stuff. It's becoming a big business, not just in Chatham, all over the Cape. We can't solve the affordable housing problem in Chatham, and we got to stop thinking we can, okay? It's going to be one or two houses, not these kinds of development. It's disrupting the community too much. I'm for affordable housing, everybody. How could you not be for affordable housing? But I think most of us who are concerned with the quality of life and what Chatham looks like now and in the future, what you're building here is going to be here for 100 years, okay? And it's a problem. So I know you have no choice. You probably have to approve it. But I can guarantee you the majority of the people in this town are not happy. But we've kind of been stuck, all right? And good luck, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Messina. Gentleman in the back that you're standing.
How do you do? I'm Dave Beauchamp from South Chatham. I know this has been going on for a year, a little over a year. I haven't spoken before. But I think I should be standing in front of the Conservation Commission rather than the Zoning Commission, because I think we should have left the deer and the coyotes and the fox continue running the property as they have. It's surprising to me that this property is here. And if you look back, our intelligent forefathers have left this property empty for 300 years, apparently for good reason. Now it's being developed, most likely, but we should stop and consider. I don't necessarily think it's a done deal. I don't think the Highway Department has done a worthwhile job in foreseeing what's coming along and doing something about it and plotting it out, so to speak. We had photos or pictures previously of the housing, but they did not show the parking around that area. They showed the road or the driveway going up the hill, but they don't show the incline that's there. I think the people of South Chatham or Chatham, if they're interested in a property, in a past year, they should have walked it from east to west and north to south on a couple occasions, as I've done. And I think if the zoning board people have not walked the property, they should recluse themselves from voting. But at any rate, we're at this point. You'll pardon me just a second. Here, they're apparently preparing to put in so-called 45 apartments. Since the heart is where the home is, I would think we should be thinking of putting in or calling them 45 homes. And little is outlined for the children that might be there. And on the driveway going up the hill, and Chatham these days and in our years, we should be building streets. The shit streets should be have a wide 2 lanes, as most streets do, and they should have walkways and bikeways for that street. And as you get down to Meeting House Road, which is 300 years old, it's very inadequate in that area. And unfortunately, they should do a lot more about it.
Sir, I'm sorry, you're at your limit.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for your comments.
The last thing I would say, if you don't mind,
I actually need to cut you off, I'm sorry. We have,
okay?
but thank you for your comments. Okay. Oh, Ms. Hicks, yeah. And then Mr. Buckley will take
Lori
you.
Hicks, Meeting House Road. In all of the meetings I've been to in the last 2.5 years, I've never once heard anybody at any meeting ever be opposed to affordable housing. I'm in a butter, and I'm not opposed to affordable housing. But the problems that I'm hearing, and even removing myself from the situation, my living situation, to have one generator, I heard today, for the facility building, there are 42 units there, 42 units of people. Every building should have a generator. There are medical devices that run on electricity. It's irresponsible. I don't walk on 137 now because it's dangerous. To not have a sidewalk there is just unacceptable. Last meeting, we saw Dave Farrell make a very impactful photo of a window that hadn't been done, and it couldn't be done, Penrose said, because they had to work with the contractor because it was under warranty. Ms. Fenwick posed the question 20 seconds later and asked when it would be fixed, and it'll be fixed by the next meeting. So I guess the warranty didn't mean anything anymore. This is a problem. If people are going to say anything, if Penrose is going to say anything to get the permit, we're going to be hearing, well, we tried to get that product, but we couldn't. Well, we tried to get that done, but the terrain was just too difficult. It'll go on and on and on. This is not the right developer for this parcel. We heard 2 other great presentations that the planning board liked better, that the public liked better. So let's get them back. We need housing, we need it yesterday, but we need to do it right. This is not the right plan. The trust railroaded this through. They've heard everything that you heard and ignored it and dismissed it. You have the opportunity today and during your deliberations to take that into consideration. You've heard from the public. Please, please, please take into consideration and include the community and the residents of Chatham in these kinds of decisions. This is going to set the stage for other projects, and we've got a lot of projects going on in town. Chatham's doing a good job at having making projects happen for affordable and attainable housing, but this isn't the right one. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hicks. Mr. Buckley.
Yes. Thank you, Steve Buckley. I have a question for Penrose about the generator that was just mentioned and earlier about the fact that there will now be a generator for the management space. This is on page 1 of their July 30th letter to the ZBA, but it was mentioned earlier. So my question is, who will be available to? Will that just be for management staff, or will it be like what's available at the Penrose property in Orleans and Eastham, where there's a space or accessibility by the residents to come in and, yes, medical devices, charging access. I'm wondering about that. If that could be, will that be available to residents?
I think Mr. Singer will address that one after the question.
Okay.
This is a Q&A, it's just.
And in that case,
Okay.
I have not been given sufficient information in order to comment on that aspect,
Okay,
for the record.
okay.
And also, I'm wondering if the former Buckley property at 1533 will be set up, in the same question for that. Will that be a generator there, and will that be accessible? So, same question. Thank you. But like I said, the format, according to this, does not provide me with information in order for me to provide a reasonably thoughtful comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the comments. Do we have anyone else that would like to speak? Go to the microphone. Okay, Mr. Dykens.
Thank you very much for your efforts. This has been a long haul, long slog. I hearken back to the comment about, is this project consistent with local needs? And I'd like to talk about local needs just for a sec. We have a dearth of rental housing here in town. We desperately need rental housing. We desperately need affordable rental housing. We have to hearken back to why we're even here. We're here because we identified a need for rental housing. We have none. Hordes of people come to Chatham by car every day to work here, to play here, but to work here. We need housing for folks that are here to work. Let's talk about the location. If not here, where? I've spoken before. I have examined in my various roles, every single parcel of town-owned property in this town. And I cannot find another parcel that should have affordable housing. The Archdiocese of Fall River sold this property to us at a major discount so it could be developed as affordable housing. And our town leaders went out and got an RFP and selected that outfit, Penrose, that they thought to be the most qualified and would deliver the most product. We're going to provide housing for 42 families, if you will. So think about what we're really trying to do here. Mission, location, the project itself, they've responded, Penrose has responded repeatedly to the needs for the bike, get access via the bike trail, have a decreased density, have a good plan, have a great plan, if you will. I want to put on the table, and not for this, the considerations for your deliberations, but I would like to think about, and I know that the traffic experts say this is not acceptable to them, but on the east side of Meeting House, I would solicit, or I would offer that the town would work in concert, should this be approved, with Penrose to do a sidewalk on the east side. I think the east side's easier than the west side. The west side's got a big ravine. I'm concerned about access and pedestrian traffic. But think about the end of Route 137. You've got to slow down for the bikeways intersection anyway. It's not optimal, but you're going to slow down maybe twice now if we do an east side sidewalk there. You'll have folks crossing over to the east. There's got to be appropriate signage, appropriate signaling, if that's appropriate. But you're going to slow down. You slow down at the end anyway. So let's consider, at least consider. And I would offer, can't make a promise, but I would offer that the town would be certainly receptive to investigating using the east side and putting a sidewalk on the east side, tying back into the bike trail. I think that may assuage some pedestrian concerns if it's done safely. And I agree we need a light at the end of it with Frank Messina. We need a light there. It can be a hellacious intersection. And I do wish you luck in your deliberations. I really urge your approval. We've been at this for a year. It's a good plan. It is the location, and I do urge approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dykens. Okay, yeah. I think it's Mr. Whitcomb, is that your?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. David Whitcomb, Indian Trail, West Chatham. We're all for affordable housing. That's why we have the lowest percentage of affordable housing on Cape Cod. We've built approximately 2 units over the last 26 years. The last significant project, Mr. Nixon was on the zoning board then, was Lake Street. And if Lake Street had to go through what we've gone through with this, it never would have been built, and we'd even have less affordable housing than we have now. We have no land in Chatham to make it contiguous with the rest of the town. We don't have any land to do that with. We spent a lot of land bank money, CPA money, in buying conservation land, which was important, but that's where all our money went. So in order to build anything that people seem to want, we don't have the land to do it. So I'm of the mind that you've heard everything. I can't tell you anything more. The one consideration I have is the sidewalk as well. It sounded to me like the pathway along the east end, south end, was significant, but then Mr. Dykens made another suggestion that might work. So I believe that you've done an excellent job in getting for what you've gotten. And I would encourage you to support this plan with conditions and move it forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your feedback. Ms. McClellan.
Hello, Carolyn McClellan, South Chatham. I do have a picture that I'm hoping you can throw up there on the screen. I've heard a lot of comments, mostly about maintenance and safety. And so I have a picture here. I don't know if you people recognize where this is. This is the Captain Bassett House, which is used as, the Chamber of Commerce uses it as their Welcoming to Chatham Center. It's owned by the town, leased by the chamber. It's a historic building. It's right at the intersection of 137 and Route 28. And it has a completely rotted windowsill there. It looks like it's been rotting for quite a while, probably not as long as the building's been there, but for quite some time. We're inviting our people to come in. It's a gateway. When people come into Chatham, this is where they come and they get some brochures and learn about the town. So very negligent. I'm not here just to point that out. I've made some calls, and hopefully somebody will take care of it, and I'm sure other people will make calls after this. But what concerns me about this picture in the context of this meeting is this property is an abutter to the gentleman who keeps going to Eastham to look at the property at Nauset Green. This is his neighbor. So it's curious to me, and not just him, but many folks, why we're looking only at affordable housing, that we get all upset about maintenance and all this, and we're scrutinizing every little detail about affordable housing, and yet we don't have the same appetite to deal with that for other projects that are in town that aren't affordable housing. The same can be said about safety. We just recently had an issue about the Crowell Road Main Street intersection. Didn't want to do any updates, safety was not a priority there, it was the aesthetics. We foregoed $5 million from the state rather than upgrade it for safety. There's another property, I think it's Kent Place, where they have a property there where the people step out their door and they're in the street. They wouldn't put a speed bump there. None of these folks were here arguing for safety there, but they come here because they're looking for an excuse, a reason to kill this project. And it's a false narrative, and it's only about they don't want this property here. And a lot of people talk about the people in this town, I know, well, we had a democratic process. Every single step of the way, this went through with a majority vote. The fact that someone randomly sitting here in this audience who thinks that their opinion is what the town wants, that's inaccurate. They were in the minority, and this is what we've chosen to do because we need housing. And I just really, really hope that you won't be dissuaded by these arguments concerning safety and maintenance. And I also point out that they are putting in a sidewalk on the shoulder there going from the bike path to 28, which the South Chatham Village people here have been trying to get for years and haven't been able to get. And that's a safety issue. And Penrose, our good neighbor, our partner, is going to do that for us. So you'll be able to go from the development to the bike path to that new sidewalk and cross 28. So this is a huge asset,
Sorry,
a huge win for the town.
Ms. McCollum,
Thank
we're
you.
at time. Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Mr. Shell. Oh, I'm sorry. I think you already spoke.
I do have one more thing to say.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. You can't. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you had already spoken. You can't.
Well, I was invited to explain my letter.
Oh, okay, excuse me.
Because I just read it, so.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, since I wasn't here, I
No,
wasn't
that's
aware
all
of
right.
that.
No problem. And I didn't really want to stand up here, but I don't want to get into who said what or who's legitimate or anything of that nature. What I want to say one thing, which is responsive to things you've heard today. I submitted a letter to you, which was too long, but it laid out every single one of the official steps, beginning in 2003 that town meeting, the select board, the Affordable Housing Trust Board, the Community Housing Partnership, et cetera, the planning board has been looking at various aspects of how do we get affordable housing in this town. Not only generally, but specifically when we started talking about this project as well as Main Street in 2021 and 2022. So basically, we've been at specifics for 5 years. I was there for most of that. I can tell you that every single step that required a vote, that required appropriate presentations, that required whatever it required, has been followed. And I know you know that. I'm telling you things I hope you know, I'm sure you know. But for the record, I just want people to understand, I want this town to understand that this is not something that was cooked up by half a dozen people in the back room. And this is something that we have literally been working on for more than 20 years. So you do your job. I'm not telling you that means anything about what your job is, but please do see that as a process of which you are right at the final end. And also please understand that I don't believe, and I hope you don't believe, you're not a vote taker, you're not a poll taker. You are here to decide on this project and how it merits approval or not approval according to the appropriate standards. And so I think it's appropriate for me to stand up and say that to you. I'll reiterate my thanks for all the work that you've been doing on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shell. And I did just want to comment, even though your letter was too long to be read according to the rules, we've all read it. We all read it. And it is online for anyone that wants to read it. That may, you know.
That one is not online because we didn't receive it until
Okay.
after the deadline.
When you miss the first 30 minutes, you miss a lot, apparently. Okay, does anyone else have, okay, Brian Phillips.
Ms. Gibbs would like a chance to speak again.
Brian Phillips, 374 Orleans Road. Thank you, ZBA, for your time and effort you put into these hearings. The first thing I want to clear up is Penrose makes the argument that a market rate development would not be required to provide certain amenities, like the sidewalks. But the fact of the matter is that market rate development like this would never be allowed in Chatham. This has been a generally frustrating experience for me because we could have done so much better with these projects, including homeownership or year-round deed restrictions. Year-round deed restrictions is how we should be doing affordable housing moving forward because it is the government interference with the least amount of government interference. A major contributor to the housing crisis in Chatham and on Cape Cod is the corporate takeover of short-term seasonal rental market. Using large-scale for-profit corporate projects like the ones going up all over the Cape to solve this problem is like trying to dig yourself out of a hole and will cause more problems than it will solve. These projects are too big, too dense, and put too much strain on our infrastructure. More people means more pollution. We are literally, Cape Cod is literally a sandbar sticking out into the middle of the ocean. We have delicate ecosystems and limited natural resources. The Cape only has so much capacity for human inhabitants before we destroy the environment and natural resources. I asked Penrose if they were going to do what's right for Chatham or what's best for their shareholders. On numerous occasions during the Buckley property hearings, they said they were going to do what's best for Penrose shareholders. Penrose does not care about the environment or Chatham's livelihood. Penrose only cares about profits. JP Morgan Chase announced they will be investing $750 billion in projects like these. I'll tell you right now, JP Morgan Chase is not doing this out of goodness of their heart, but they're doing it for the potential of huge profits. This project and others like it are almost entirely state and federally subsidized. It is not required to pay prevailing wages that other government projects require and are able to bypass local zoning laws that are detrimental to a town like Chatham. There are also loopholes to get rid of the affordable housing units and sell the project for huge profits. When an Orleans resident did a Freedom of Information request for all email communication between town boards, committees, and staff concerning Penrose and affordable housing, over 1,800 emails were released. You guys got some of those emails in the Buckley property hearings. When Hannah Smith did the same Freedom of Information Act request in Chatham, 0 emails were released. And I know there should have been one because I emailed a member of the Finance Committee about affordable housing. Penrose Harwich project is on a 99-year lease, so it goes back to the town after 99 years. Yet in Chatham, we are giving the land for a song and dance. There are so many things wrong with this project
Brian.
and how it was procured.
Sorry, I have to cut you off. You're at time.
Can I have 30 more seconds?
No, I'm sorry, you can't.
She got twice.
Oh, no.
This is, I'm sorry, I thought that gentleman was walking up. Does anyone else have comments? I don't know that we're doing questions.
Okay, well, I came in late, so Lori McCann, Chatham. Because I came in late, I don't know, was the pedestrian fatality on Crosby Road mentioned at this meeting? That pedestrian fatality occurred July 29th, I believe. Crosby Lane is half a mile away from this project site. There are sidewalks there. In my opinion, sidewalks aren't the resolution for safety on this site. This site has so many flaws. The looming buildings are going to change the character of this town forever. And when you allow this, you open the door to allow many more. And if any of you are paying attention, and I'm sure you are, to Cape Cod in its entirety, the towns of Sandwich, Harwich, the residents of those towns, now with the residents here in Chatham, are finally awake and paying attention to what 40B is doing to this peninsula. Are we on a peninsula? I think that's correct. Sorry. It is destruction that cannot be reversed. 40B does not need to be implemented tomorrow. It is a long-term plan, and we should not be rushing this through. We have a resident who lost her life a week ago, a half a mile away from both the West Chatham affordable housing site on Main Street and the proposed Meeting House Road site. So I hope everyone understands that, because I'm not sure they do.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have anyone else that would like to speak in the room or online? Okay, all right. We have Ms. Elaine Gibbs back on the line.
Thank you. I just wanted to make one statement, since Mr. Shell got 2 shots at this. I would ask that you all read my letter, since I didn't get it in time, and it was difficult for me to summarize it. I think there's really important information in there, and I hope you'll read it during the deliberation process and before you have to, before this August 20th meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs. So I'm going to make this decision. So technically, Brian, you don't get more time, but you're going to get a second shot since Ms. Gibbs got 2 and Mr. Shell got 2.
It's quick. Brian Phillips, 374 Orleans Road. The fact of the matter, this project is not right for Chatham, and Penrose is not right for Chatham. We already made a huge mistake by not doing the right project at the Buckley property. Please do not follow this up by another mistake. Please deny this application so we can send out another RFP for a project that suits Chatham's needs and we can be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Anyone else in the room or anyone else online? This is it. Okay. This is the last public hearing. After this, we are going to close the hearing. Move to board deliberations, questions. Well, actually, we're going to let Mr. Singer time for any rebuttal, and then we will have the board ask questions, make comments, and deliberate.
If it's coming out back to me, could I request a 5-minute recess? Just like we heard a lot, and I'd just like to be able to speak to Penrose so
Yes,
they can give you more answers.
Okay, we'll take a break.
Thank you.
Welcome back. So let me just quickly go through a few things. So, Mr. Singer, we're going to start with you. We're going to give you an opportunity to say anything, share any rebuttal from any of the comments that you heard. And then we're just going to open to discuss waivers. We're going to start with waivers,
Okay.
okay? And then that'll be a back and forth. We'll do them one at a time. Okay?
Yes.
As opposed to, okay. All right, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Just have a few responses and maybe a little bit of a recap since Ms. Fenwick missed my opening where I pitched some of that. So, and this may not be in exact order of what we heard, but the comments that I was writing down. The specific question about the generator, in response to that question, the generator has been proposed for the management space at the end of Building 1, and that would be available for residents to be able to charge devices and phones, and if there's an emergency, have a place where they could have some communications. And that leads into a statement that I've said before, and I'll say it again, which is this is an affordable housing project, and it is by law to be treated the same as market rate developments. And in market rate developments in Chatham, many of the things that Penrose has offered are not required, but they have offered several things that they felt that they could do within the confines of providing this affordable housing. And so that, I think, is very important for you to keep in mind, please, as you are deliberating. But that is a specific answer to the generators. As for the sidewalk question, and you heard from two people who are involved in town government and many others, that sidewalks are something on Meeting House Road that would be a good thing. And Penrose is not denying that. In fact, Penrose is building a segment of sidewalk that we heard today is something that South Chatham has wanted for many years, and the town hasn't built it. Penrose is able to do that one. If additional sidewalks are needed for safety reasons, then that sounds like an admirable goal, and it sounds like, as was noted, a town-wide goal. It's something that Penrose would be happy to participate in as a property owner and resident, quote unquote, of the town of Chatham. So if sidewalks are a good thing, and I'm not saying they aren't, then, and maybe on the east side of the road, as Mr. Dykens mentioned, then that is something the town should address, and the applicant will participate. But again, and I wrote this in my letter memorandum last session, it is not appropriate to pin an expense like that, particularly with all of the issues that there are, on an individual developer, affordable housing or not, but particularly in this case, affordable housing, which is on town public land that was purchased for affordable housing, and again, which the applicant was invited to bid on to develop the housing that is being proposed. There were other proposals for housing on this land, and frankly, at least one of them had bigger buildings than what Penrose is proposing. And the town selected this development, which is now less dense, again, as we talked about, because of the additional land. The density on the property has been reduced. As far as analysis of the driveway and the rail trail and the connector path, please ask the board to also recall, as you deliberate, as I've mentioned before, that the applicant's civil and traffic engineers have been before you. The traffic engineer spoke with you twice. All of their data, documents, reviews have been thoroughly and repeatedly reviewed by the peer review company that you hired to do peer review. And that company accepted and adopted the plans that are before you. You have heard a lot of comments against them from the public. You have not received one engineered response from an engineer saying that there's anything wrong with the connector path, the driveway, or the way the site is laid out. And in fact, you've only had evidence to the contrary. Everything that you have on the plans before you meets all of the rules, meets safety, and meets the design requirements. So I'd ask you to recall that as well. And the final thing is that as you look at this, the question is, the legal standard again, is the project consistent with local needs in the balancing tests that you do? Well, this project is going to provide homes for 42 families for however long the buildings are here, as you have heard. Those are homes and families that the town of Chatham desperately needs, that everyone says the town of Chatham desperately wants. this is the way to have those families be able to live in the community. And we ask you to approve the project, and we're happy to continue with the waivers and everything else as we go through it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Singer. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just go, the board discussing the waivers. Yeah, a little back and forth. So, Mr. Singer, one question I had for you was, at the beginning of the meeting, you handed out a revised waiver dated August, but there's one change, right? So,
Well, there was one change, but it was a deletion. So I realized this morning, and I apologize for realizing it so late, that there was in section B, there was originally, if you look at the one I gave you today, there's a B1. There had been B1 through 6. Well, B2, 3, 4, 5, 6 were all waiver requests from the subdivision rules and regulations for street development. That was presupposing originally on that the driveway was going to be a street and it needed those waivers. The driveway is not going to be a right-of-way, it's not going to be a street, so I realized those waivers aren't necessary. So all I did this morning was I deleted B2, 3, 4, 5, 6
okay.
and changed the word at the end of B1 to say lot. So that's the only, it's not just one change, it was one change, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a question mark next to that whole section anyway, so that's.
Correct, we realized we didn't need it, or we didn't need
Okay,
99% of it.
so B1 through 6 is off of what?
No, B1 is there.
Oh, B1.
But B2 through 6 are
2
gone.
through 6, okay.
Yeah.
All right, 2 through 6.
And we can go back to the beginning after that, but that's the change, that's the only change that you have from what I delivered last week.
Okay. All right, so why don't we start, Dave Veach, you have some comments about waivers, you want to take them one at a time?
We can go through them one at a time. I just kind of, I looked it over and at least didn't see anything that I had questions about particularly. I think,
Comments about them?
comments about them? Well, I mean, I think they've identified, the purpose of them is identifying specific waivers that they need from our zoning bylaw. And they're, for the proposal that's before us, and they're asking us to consider those and weigh those against the needs and that we're supposed to be balancing via 40B. I don't really have any other, I can't think of, I didn't look through the zoning bylaw to find other things that weren't on the list here. I don't think that's
I hope we were
I hope they've been fairly, I have a certain amount of trust they've been thorough in their professional and thorough in their request for all this. So, no, I don't really have any comments. I mean, I think as the only thing that I would say also with respect to the building height waivers, which have been, some people have had issues with in the other project and on this one. But the point I think they've made, which is important to me, is that the buildings here haven't changed. There have been some grading changes made that thus change the grade plane, and so any changes from the requests with respect to heights are not due to increased height of the building necessarily, but to a difference in the calculation of the grade plane. And I believe that to be the case. So other than that, no, I did look over the conditions that we had applied for the other project, for the Main Street project, and many of these are the same waivers that we accepted there. So those would be my comments at this point.
Okay, Ed, how about you?
I just a question regarding the building heights, and was the grade plane changed because of the addition of the abutting property, or what constituted these grade plane changes, I guess? Or was it particularly because initially you had submitted a set of plans that were not finalized, and now these are based off of final engineering?
Sure, Joe Henderson, Horsley Witten here. Yeah, I can explain it, and I think you're exactly right. The initial waiver that was presented was based on the the preliminary grading. We've since gone through and we've created low points around the building, which they skew the grade. So we have, I can show you an example. If you give me a second. I'm going to pull up the grading plan. Oh, maybe I can do it this way.
That, by the way, is the segment of sidewalk that we talked about that's being built by the
I'm trying
applicant.
to do this without going through every slide. There we go. There we go.
There are a lot of slides in the PowerPoint.
Let's see if this works. All right, I think this will show us. So, for example, up here at buildings, let's see if I can zoom in. This way, there we go. Can I hold that? Sorry, I went that way. Let me get back to that. I can't zoom in. So I was going to look here up at these two buildings, right? You can see that there are two low points that we've identified right here for drainage, right? So this low point and this low point. The grade plane that's used for the building height calculation is based on the average grade, including the lowest grade around the building. So when you incorporate these kind of isolated low points into that calculation, that's what changed it based on the original calc. So these are two isolated points. The finished grade at this building, I believe, is up at 63.5. And to make the grading work, where we want to make sure the water drains away from the buildings, we don't want water up against the buildings, we don't want water just ponding in between the buildings, we want the water to be captured here and taken away. So to do that, we create these isolated low points, and that's what skews the grade, because the grade plane is based on 20 feet off the building. It's not just the grade at the building. It takes into account any grade that's low within 20 feet of the building. So does that help explain?
Yeah, I was just curious on why it changed.
Sure.
Thank you. Is this, are we just questions about the waivers at this point, and then at some point there'll be more open
We're going
discussion?
to go through the waivers first.
Okay, thank you.
We'll have comments. And Paul, questions, comments about waivers?
I have no questions or comments on the waivers. They're substantially what we were dealing with before.
Okay. Lee?
No comments or questions about the waivers for me either. And maybe this isn't the time to go through regarding the parking spaces, because that could be a condition, and I think we had, and maybe we've talked about this before, but, excuse me, I think with the Main Street property, we did make a condition that one parking space per unit, so I just wanted to throw that out there too, be assigned. So that's it for me. Just a thought before I forgot about it.
I mean, there is parking on the just waiver list, the parking number 4.
Oh, yeah, no, I know, there is parking. It's,
But you're talking about, you'd like to see the signed parking.
yeah, but yeah, that's the only thought I had regarding the waivers at this
Waiver
point.
list, okay. Steve, waiver list?
I think the only thing that I was going to ask about, and Ed sort of touched on it, was the building height. Some of them changed fairly substantially, and I don't know if that's because maybe they were shuffled around a little bit.
They were spread out.
Slightly different location than they used to be. I just wanted to verify that.
Yeah, when the additional land was provided, the buildings were spread. That's why you have more green space in the middle in the maintenance building. So yes.
Okay.
Just
all
to
right.
follow up what Joe said.
Okay, thank you.
Dave? Okay, I do have a couple of questions about the waivers. So number 3, the building coverage, 10% to 13%. I know that it's common to increase the density in these projects. And so it's not uncommon to see a building waiver. But, I did want to point out it may seem 3%, like it's not a big change, but it's not a 3% increase. It's a 30% change from 10%, going from 10% to 30. So it is a big ask. And to me, it speaks to density. So I'm not saying I'm going to, I understand it, but I wanted to point out and make the point that even though you purchase more property to spread out the project, it was very dense before, and it is still dense because you're asking for, in total, a 30% waiver for density. All right, the other comment I wanted to make about the waiver was the parking, which is number 4. So 84 spots is what the planning board or something that I had read right here says that what they recommend is 2 parking spaces per residential unit. And that would be 84 units, and you're asking for 67, which is 20% less. Now, normally I've heard of course, all the discussions about the parking, but given the isolated location of this project, and the location of this project, I do think, and it's been brought up before, I wanted to reiterate it, that 67 is a little skinny. Now, the question I have about it, Mr. Singer, is that I read in the planning board discussion how they didn't like the parking that's in the entryway. And so can you maybe answer the question, or maybe Mr. Henderson can, about how many parking spaces does that include? Because they were very concerned about, and I read your comments in rebuttal, but they were concerned about
Sure.
pulling out into the entryway from those parking spots. How many parking spots is that?
Joe can answer the details. I just wanted to preface it by saying that one of the concerns the planning board had was when they thought that was going to be a right-of-way, and there's a policy in the town about not backing into a right-of-way. This is a driveway, as opposed to, we'll answer the question, but I just want you to know it's backing into a parking lot, into a driveway, which is what you would have in any development.
Sure. What was your question? How many spots are?
How many spots is that is backing out potentially into the entryway to the complex?
There's 2, 4, 6, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 spaces that are along that entry.
Okay. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And then I too want to touch on the height waivers. So you've gone from 5 to 7. You originally asked for 5 waivers, now we're to 7. And to Steve's point, one of them is over 5 feet, and 3 of them are 4 feet. So I understand that it's being attributed to grading, but Chatham doesn't have multiple ways that they calculate height. It is often mentioned that it's because of there are multiple, the way that Chatham calculates the height is taking those multiple points of grade. So that is not new. Why did that create such a change in the original ask when, I don't find it acceptable to say, well, if you look at it this way, it's really not that big of a change. That's not how we look at it. We look at height calculated a very specific way.
Joe can address that. I will just point out, practically speaking, though, the buildings, as I said, they haven't changed. Height, massing, design, everything you've looked at for the last year, the buildings are exactly the same, except the calculation, and that's what Joe will address your question.
Yeah, like I said, they're skewed by these low points that we're creating to meet the requirements for drainage. So we have to satisfy the peer review engineers as far as making sure we get water away from the buildings, and that's part of the whole drainage design, to be comprehensive and make sure. So yeah, we could have made it flat and just let the water sit there, but this is to make sure we are responsible with the drainage around the
I
buildings.
am absolutely in favor of the drainage. I think that is prudent civil engineering and project development. But that's not something that would have come so late in the project that you didn't foresee. So yes, I understand, Mr. Singer, the buildings aren't changing, and we've looked at the layout of the buildings and all of that. But I did want to make the comment that a 5-foot height waiver, because of the, I don't want to say it's really a change. The grading should have been a factor that was foreseen and calculated. And I just am a little surprised to see the waiver go from 5 to 7 and at such high amounts. So it was more of a comment than.
If I could just in response to that, 40B by law says that applicants only need to come with preliminary plans. And so that's what we originally came with, pretty well-developed preliminary plans, but they're preliminary plans. And very often the plans aren't finalized till after a comprehensive permit is issued, and you seek amendments if you have to. In this case, the Horsley Witten went and did all of that work, the grading and everything ahead of time during this process at your request and the planning board request so that you could have the final data, and that's what you have. That's why the change. It wasn't seeking to make huge changes. It was that the way the process works, you had preliminary plans originally, and now you have, basically final plans almost.
Okay. Mr. Henderson, the building that you showed on the screen was Building 5, the tallest one, and it's in the back. I just wanted to clarify, was that the building you were pointing out?
I was, yes. Building 5 and 4 is what I was pointing out.
Okay, and 5 is the one that's at 5.3. So it's in the back. That's at least.
Correct, the back corner.
I think that's a mitigating thing. Okay, those were my comments about the waivers. Does anyone else, no, have anything else to add after that? Okay, Mr. Singer, anything else you want to add before we?
I don't think so.
Okay, so we're going to keep the hearing open. We're going to just begin discussions about conditions, and what we'd like the board to share are the things that you would need to have or want to have in order to help inform your vote. Okay. So let's see. I'm going to start with Dave Veach again.
Well, I looked over, to help perhaps guide me, I looked over the conditions that we applied on Main Street. And realizing in the course of doing this that a lot of it is what I would call boilerplate that's put there by our attorneys and working for the town. So a lot of that, I think, is probably be expected to be applied here. Lee had brought up the parking, so we did assigned parking as one of our conditions, or assigned parking. We had a condition about the lighting, all the lighting being dark sky light, and they represented that that's going to be the case here. We had a condition with respect to the building management space there, but that's not, I don't know that we have those same kinds of considerations here. It doesn't seem to be a parallel to me with any of that. So really, then the other thing that we had some conditions with respect to irrigation, and we had quite a bit of discussion about irrigation and things, and I don't know if we want to, I don't have strong feelings about a lot of this. I'm just bringing up some of the things that we, as a board, looked at and discussed on the prior approval. And I don't think I can say that among any of these, for me, I have two minds about assigning parking spaces. And I can go along either way. If it were up to me, I would not do assigned parking spaces. And maybe a condition that if there were, or we might think about some kind of showing a plan for overflow parking if parking on site seems to be inadequate or something along those lines. But I know, I guess as a former business owner in downtown Chatham, and parking is something that's I have a different relationship to it. Let's put it that way. And I know one of the things that's always been true is which I'm pleased that the town actually never tried to designate actual parallel parking spaces along Main Street, because I think it works better for everybody that the town hasn't done that. But parking is a large issue in Chatham that is, I think, that issue is different than the one for projects like this. And Penrose does have some experience with a lot of this, so I tend to want to follow, or be inclined to follow their preferences with respect to assigned parking. The irrigation thing, I don't know. I mean, my sense from the discussion on Main Street was that we then asked them to put in irrigation with the idea of making sure that the plantings would do well, but that they had, my sense with that is they already had a plan for bringing trucking in water or something to help establish the landscaping. So I don't know if we want to, again, specify an irrigation system or whether we leave it to their devices, just making sure that, and I think we do, even in some of the boilerplate here, is about, any plants that don't survive need to be replaced and things like that. So those are my initial thoughts on any conditions. I don't feel, I guess I will say that in my mind, with respect to the sidewalk issue, I said it at the last meeting here that I mean, if it were me, and there was a sidewalk down along Route 137, and also the pathway that they've created and I were a pedestrian, I would choose the pathway every time, because I don't particularly appreciate walking on a sidewalk that's separated from cars going 40 miles an hour by a 6-inch curb. It's, a sidewalk directly adjacent to and abutting a travel lane on a highway, well, that's safer than not having something in some regards. But between those two options, I think the pathway would be a much safer option to take, and that's my feeling on it. And I do further accept and would agree with their saying that, trying to put a sidewalk in on that west side, I think we can all see, and they've outlined the difficulties in doing that. And as Jeff Dykens has indicated, so a sidewalk on a highway, is a town issue, I think. And I'm happy to hear that Penrose would be happy to work with the town, but I think it's the town's responsibility. And we have other sidewalk issues in town that we've tried to address and had problems addressing, and especially this time of year, we have many sidewalk issues in this town and safety issues in this time of year. So I don't think that it's something for us that I would want to see attached as a condition for approval for this project. I think it's for now.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Steve?
So we're talking about things that we would like to see
Comments,
happen.
conditions you'd like to see that could influence or impact your vote?
Okay, so, one of the things that was brought up today was a generator for the management building. I think that's completely inefficient or insufficient for the residents. The last storm that we had, I know from personal experience in my house, my generator ran for 54 hours straight. And I was one of the lucky ones in getting power back after 3 days, and there were people in town that were well after that. So to expect one generator to be able to support 100 people that may not have any other place to go, I think is totally insufficient. I can imagine people 50 deep standing in line trying to use an electrical outlet to charge their phone. So I think something else needs to be done. There may be a generator for each building, I think would be important, because there's just too many people to ask to go someplace else or to find somebody else's residence that might have power, so that they can charge their devices. I think that needs to be looked at. I think there needs to be some thought given to overflow or guest parking. I suppose using the church across the street is an option, or the parking lot that's along the bike path. But again, how do people get from that to the residence of where they're going? They're going to, have to use the bike path or walk along 137 to go up the main driveway. I think some thought needs to go into what you're going to do for overflow parking. In the case of a snowstorm, there's even going to be fewer spots left inside the facility because of, they're going to be covered in snow. So I think parking is a big issue. Getting back to the use of the bike path, that path is becoming more and more dangerous every day with electric motorcycles, not pedal assist bikes that are just kind of cruising along, but kids riding on motorized motorcycles or electric motorcycles that are intended for either use on the road or off-road someplace, not on the bike path. To just assume that that's going to be a safe way for people to exit the property, I think is mistaken. The bike path may not even be accessible in some months. It's not maintained by the town. It's not lit, and it's really not supposed to be in operation from dusk to dawn. So I think just relying on that only is a mistake. I think there needs to be some other egress from the property, which brings up the sidewalk. We heard, we've had several suggestions from board members and from the public about, how things could be constructed. We heard a thought about building something on the east side, which was talked about early on, I think, but it never really got any traction. I suppose that's an option. But it needs to be explored. I think, there has to be some sort of secondary egress or access to that facility. I think relying on the bike path solely is not a good idea. And, we talk about safety and, that some of the suggestions that were given were, the building a sidewalk was impractical or too expensive. As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing about providing safety to the citizens of Chatham that's too expensive. If we have to have it, we have to have it, and whatever it costs to get it done, I think needs to be done. That's it.
Thank you, Steve. Dave?
Well, the question is, are there conditions that I could suggest that would influence my vote? I've been suggesting conditions all along, whether it be elevators, the kind of, so it's frankly too late. And I'll save my comments for deliberations.
Okay. Close out the side, Lee.
Okay, thank you. My two concerns, as I've said before, are sidewalks and the management of the buildings, of the project. And I guess I have one question regarding the sidewalks. Has there been any discussion with the town? Have they approached you, Penrose, regarding a sidewalk on the east side? And I think the church needs to be involved too on those discussions, because obviously it's their land. So could you speak to that?
I don't think there's been any formal communication. Certainly it's been brought up here. And there have been select board members in the room, several of them actually, who have heard it repeatedly. And Penrose is willing to talk, but I can't speak for the town, I can't speak for the church. But
Well, I think that if a sidewalk is going to happen, then there needs to be, there actually needs to be a written agreement between the town, Penrose, and the church to build a sidewalk. Because I echo a lot of my other board members' concerns that one form of egress is not enough, I don't think. I think the bike path, the path leading to the bike path is a very nice thing, and I think people will use it. And I agree, it's safe, but I think you need to provide another safety measure regarding entering and exiting the development. I think that, the town, as has been mentioned, the town invited Penrose to come and build this here. And I think the town has a little bit of an obligation to put a sidewalk in conjunction with Penrose and the church. I think it would behoove everybody to have a sidewalk there. So I feel very strongly about that. That could be, what, if I could see that there was an agreement to do that, I would be inclined to vote yes on this. But if I can't get a very strong feeling or a written agreement or some sort of proof, and maybe we can talk to Jay Tellerman about that as well a little bit, but it would be I just don't have a good feeling regarding the safety for this site. Let's see, and actually, to Mr. Dyken's point, having a sidewalk on the east side would require a crosswalk, and I understand that's not ideal, but it would also slow the traffic down, which would increase the safety for all that were using the sidewalk, using the bike path, crossing at the other sidewalk. So I don't know, those are my thoughts regarding the sidewalk, and I feel strongly that needs to be discussed, planned, and happen. My other question is there, what do we think, what's the plan for staffing at this development in terms of manager, full-time, part-time, maintenance crew, to address issues of the residents or the, buildings? I'd like to know what the staffing expectations are.
Sure. Hi, this is Rio Sacchetti with Penrose. The staffing plan for this property is one full-time property manager on site, minimum 40 hours a week, one full-time maintenance director on site, 40 hours a week, but also on call 24/7, and a shared resident services coordinator that would be shared with presumably Main Street or Orleans or other properties, because a property this size doesn't really can't support or need the services of a full-time, so that'll be shared regionally.
Okay.
In the beginning, there'll be additional lease-up staff when it opens, but this is the stabilized staff.
Is that standard for most of yours? Does it have to do with the size of the development?
The rule of thumb is typically one full-time property manager for every 50 units. And then when you go for the first 50 to 100 units, then it's usually you add a full-time assistant property manager.
Okay,
So yes, this is typical.
okay. All right, well, I guess my next thought has to do with the management. And, I just think it's important to ensure the safety of the residents. And from a, just a safety perspective, it should be safe, it should be stable, it should be a nice place to live, it should meet Chatham standards. I just don't want to hear that there's issues up there and the residents aren't, satisfied, they're not happy, they're not having their needs met. That it concerns me that, town of Chatham is a special place and it needs to, and not that other towns on the Cape aren't, because they are, but it needs to, I think it just needs to meet certain standards. So I'm not exactly sure what conditions to put on regarding that whole subject. Once again, maybe Jay Tollerman could help us with those. I don't recall, did we put those on? And do we have any sort of thing for Main Street regarding those types of issues?
I can look up the decision from Main Street, but Town Council, are you able to speak to that while I look for it? I don't believe we put any maintenance conditions on Main Street.
Yeah.
I don't think we had anything specific. I certainly don't mind having a conclusion that they provide us their management plan as part of the post-permit requirements for plans. And I think Rio has already described a little bit of what they're doing, and that we maybe beef up some conditions that state in terms of that it shall be maintained in a manner that is consistent with its original design and construction, wear and tear, reasonable wear and tear accepted, and that maybe the management shall be handling a complaint process regarding condition of any particular units, and that we would have some administrative approval of this as meeting the intent of those conditions. I think we can do that. And it'll certainly be helpful. I know we did something, we have maintenance plans regarding landscaping, but in terms of the buildings themselves, I'm not sure if we got too robust with the other project, but we certainly could add a little more on this one.
That's good. I mean, I'm not as concerned with the maintenance of the buildings. I mean, it needs to be clean and safe and, address mold and whatever else comes up. I guess I'm more concerned with the residents. I don't want them to be, scared or disappointed it's not a perfect world. We know it's not a perfect world. But I just want to know that what we're putting there and the people that we are, that are living there are going to be happy and it's going to be, there's going to be a set of standards that ensure that it's a good, safe place to live. It's basically my concern.
Yeah, I just might be able to respond to that because, one, I appreciate what you're saying. I don't think anyone disagrees with it. I don't think Penrose has done dozens and dozens and dozens, if not more, of projects. They are, they're welcome. The projects I've been involved with, they've been well received by the towns. They've done excellent work. This is the first time in years that a Board of Appeals has attacked, Penrose's standards and quality in any project I've been involved with, and it's been 5 or 6 at this point. And so, you have a developer who does this for a living, and we've submitted this before. They've received project eligibility from the state. The state has reviewed them. There are projects all over, well, I can just speak to Massachusetts, but wherever else they have projects that, are well received. And as you said, Ms. Hovey, there are issues all the time. And you have them in condominiums. It's the closest thing Chatham has to multifamily housing, really, in most places, is condominium style living. And, people are people. You're always going to have some issues. But I don't think that we should be going down the road of presuming that there are going to be problems and that this applicant, which is, again, was invited to the town, was selected through a public process, is somehow deficient.
What we have done, I think, may have done in another 40B, was we've had a condition in there before the final closeout that we provide the ZBA with the contact of whoever ends up being hired as the property manager, their email and their phone number, and provide it to, I think, the town administrator and police department too. We could do something like that.
That's a good idea, I think.
Lee, anything else? Paul?
Well, I share some of my colleagues' concerns about access and the use of the bike path. I think that where we're at is that we have a large development that's going to have a number of people in it who I think are going to be inclined to use, among other things, public transportation in order to access services and grocery and all the kinds of things that we do on a daily basis, perhaps more so than a number of other residents in Chatham. And therefore, I think they need to have safe access to the public transportation that's going to be available. That's either going to come through a sidewalk arrangement, either on the east or the west side. But I think on the east side, one of the problems with that is not only going to be getting an agreement between the three parties that have been talked about, but also with the state, which is going to be somewhat reluctant to be putting in another break in the flow of traffic as close as the break that they have on 28 with the crosswalk that's been created there, or two crosswalks that have been created there. So I guess what I would say is that I understand that it's economically probably not possible, or from a terrain basis not possible to put a sidewalk in effectively on the west side of Meeting House Road. The idea of putting it on the east side is a good idea. Whether that's possible and can get approvals from all the people that we need approvals from is a curious idea. It would be nice to do that. But absent that, it seems to me that we have an access that would come on the walking path from the property down to the bike path, and the bike path would then connect to the existing crosswalk on Meeting House Road. The problem I have with that is that it needs to be, if it's going to be used, you've referred to it frequently as an amenity. It, in this circumstances, is more than an amenity. It seems to me it's a necessity, given the need for people to be able to access public transportation, and not just the bike path for purposes of recreation, but for living. So it seems to me that if we're going to have your proposal be accepted, implying use of the bike path as their access, then we need to have maintenance of that bike path from the location where it leaves the, it joins the property down to Meeting House Road, so that it meets with the existing configuration to cross the road. So we need that maintenance. I think we need illumination so that it can be used in the wintertime, and it will not be an area that is in any way dangerous or not appealing to someone who is coming from a bus stop on the bottom. And I guess I would also say that I think it's important that we include a condition which would say that the applicant, Penrose, will actively pursue establishing a bus stop at the facility itself, so that there is a route change or a new route that would go off of 28 up Meeting House Road perhaps to Queen Anne or further up to Route 39, connecting with Stop and Shop and so forth, so that we not only provide those services to the town in general, but also to the people who would be in these facilities. Now, I realize that that's a matter of urging, and the question is whether we would make that a requirement with respect to our approvals. We also had some questions, I think, in the course of our hearings about the access to 95 Meeting House Road and the plans that are shown for that, and the question of whether those plans would be acceptable to us as finally done. I think we need a condition that would say that if there are going to be changes to that access versus what we are seeing now, that those changes would need to be presented to the zoning board for a revision of the special permit, so that we make sure that we close that loop and know what is happening there. But in general, I think that although we've heard a lot of criticism of Penrose, they've been quite cooperative with us in terms of a number of things that we've requested and have made changes to the project which have overall increased its desirability. So I don't necessarily fault the choice of Penrose by the various town officials that have looked at it up to this point. It seems to me they have a long record, and it's one that has been perhaps unjustifiably denigrated. I've looked at the Nauset Green property a number of times. I've gone up there. I've looked at the parking situations. I've looked at the maintenance of the buildings. And yes, there are some things that are a problem with the maintenance of the buildings, and we've had some explanation of that, and we've had some corrections. That's not to say it won't happen again. It may, but given the overall number of buildings that are there, it's been fairly well done. And in terms of the parking, I've seen no problems with the parking that has been up there. They bring some expertise with respect to the number of spaces that need to be there. And I think to a certain extent, our due diligence has been done by Ty and Bond and others in order to determine whether they have the right number of spaces. We can talk about whether to assign some. But overall, I think those are the issues I have. I understand the question of generators, and generators now are becoming almost an automatic with somebody who is building a house or putting in a new house that can afford to do so. But we have an awful lot of citizens in this town who can't afford to do so and have lived for years without generators and have adapted in order to do that. So it's a question of economics, I think, rather than anything else. It's correct. I don't think that we require generators on any new development that comes into town. They may do it on their own, but I don't think we require it. So those are my thoughts in terms of conditions overall, and we'll have more discussion of it here at the board. That's it.
Okay, Paul, thank you.
If I might, just a couple quick comments, just so I don't forget them. Just in response to what Mr. Semple just said, we have noted to your board, and you commented again, Penrose is going to reach out to the RTA, and it's my understanding that you actually have to have an approved project before they'll look at whether they'll change the routes. They won't speak in theoreticals, but absolutely, I think that's a good idea. Penrose thinks it's a good idea, and they've committed to seeking that. They've also stated in testimony to you that they will work with their residents to help procure ride shares as necessary that could come up to the management, either to the bus stop or to the management space, so that people who had to get out when they have to get out can get out. Subject to being able to get out, and that's thing we've said this before. This past winter was extraordinarily unique, and I'm not going to say it'll never happen again. But the residents here will be subject to the same issues that, as you noted, Mr. Semple, everyone else in town are, whether it's walking out on a sidewalk that's not plowed by the town for several weeks, or it's out in the road, or it's not being able to leave, for a few days until plows come by. The applicant's only being asked to be treated the same as you treat non-affordable housing in town. And, the issue, so everything that's being proposed here is an attempt to address valid concerns that are being, raised in questions. We're not going to be able to answer everything. We're trying to do things in a way that would work. So, for example, the sidewalk on the east side of the road, again, fantastic idea maybe, and if there is a new crosswalk, it would actually be further away from Route 28 than the current crosswalk at the rail trail, right? Because you'd be going further up the street somewhere, wherever that sidewalk went to. And that's something, again, that it should be something the town looks at, and I think it's something the town should look at. And I think we said this to you at the Main Street one, when there was discussion about requesting in good faith permission from the state for a crosswalk across 28 there. And we said we would hope that the select board and the ZBA would lend their support, rhetorical support or whatever, to promoting that idea. And I'd request the same thing here as far as a sidewalk on 137, wherever it is, east side, wherever it is, because I think that can be a good idea, and it's something that the whole community needs to work at together. As far as, and I want to confirm what you just said, you asked about 95, and that's not part of this project at all. However, what we said at the last meeting is if we need to make any changes to the layout that's on the approved plans, we will have to come back to you for an amendment, no matter why we're seeking the amendment, right? Whether it's because we've negotiated with a neighbor or there's needs to change a building, whatever it is. That is an absolute, and I think that would probably, I think Jay probably put it in the 1533 decision, which is if there are changes, there is a process in 40B, there are what's called minor changes and major changes, and we would certainly comply with those requirements. And as far as effectively shoveling part of the rail trail, which is what was discussed, the applicant, can agree to having that as a condition in the decision, because again, it's not on their property, but there's certainly in findings willing to state, and we have stated that they're willing to, as a further benefit for their residents, if they're plowing, when they're shoveling their pathway, they'll try, keep going down to Route 137. But we can't have that in an official decision because it's not, it's not under their care and custody and control. So hope that, thank you.
All I'm suggesting is that you can come to an agreement with the appropriate authorities so that it is within your possibility to maintain that pathway. And it's, in my view, it's more than an amenity. It's a necessity with respect to a safe access for people on the, in the development if there is no sidewalk on either side.
Yeah, and I'd suggest maybe then a finding, again, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I know Jay's listening, similar to the crosswalk language that we used in 1533, coming up with language which will say in good faith, Penrose will seek to do. And that could be with the RTA, it could be this, shoveling issue. I would suggest when we get there, or when you get there, that you ask the council to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Paul, thank you. Ed? Comments, conditions?
I guess the first comment I'd like to make is regarding Mr. Singer's comments regarding this being an affordable project and that we're asking for things to be attached to this because it's an affordable project. That's not accurate. Projects of this size are going to have an effect on a town, no matter where it's built. And it's going to be a drain on the sewer system, the water system, town facilities. So it's actually quite common for developments of this size for the town to ask for certain other things. In fact, there's a term called linkage that's used quite often. That's the politically correct term, I guess. So it's not because this is affordable and we're trying to put additional conditions on it. This is a development of size that is going to tax our town somewhat. It is needed, but I think it's quite appropriate to ask for additional linkage.
Having said that, I like the idea of the bike path being used as access down to Meeting House. I think that's the safest route. But I think asking you to come to an agreement with the town to maintain that when there's a snowstorm is critical, and I wouldn't want to have an occupancy granted for this project unless that was ironed out beforehand. I think it's something very simple, and it would be a very easy act of goodwill on Penrose to have that in place. It's not a big ask. In addition, some of the conditions I'd like to see that were attached to, I believe, the other projects where, a permanent irrigation system dedicated solely for landscaping, drip irrigation for planting beds, automatic lawn irrigation. This is sort of the landscaping part here. Your natural gas, the heat ducts to make sure they're on the back of the buildings, or if they're on the front of the buildings or visible, that they're screened. The same as last project, 3 to 5 gas grills and seating for, somewhat of a community area for the residents, which may be in there already. I'm a supporter of this project. I have, a few little asks. I don't know if solar panels for this project, I assume there's going to be solar panels on this project as the Main Street project. That's basically it. I'm happy with the project. I applaud the residents and the board members. I think your input has made it a better project. I was for it from the beginning, but your pushback reduced the density. I think it's made it better, but it's a project we need. And that would be it for me.
Okay. So I want to go in the order of I guess this was the response from the planning board, Mr. Singer,
The memo that we
the
submitted?
memo that you included in your packet, just because it was organized that way, and I just wanted to. So the first one I wanted to ask about was 95 Meeting House Road. It's towards the bottom of page 1. Now, I wasn't here at the beginning of the meeting, and I know that Ms. Hicks' attorney had a letter, which I read. So I didn't, and it was less than a page, so it was read, and it was, but I don't know what was said about that. So I apologize that I couldn't make the beginning of the meeting, and I didn't hear what that was. But what I read in the attorney's letter was that there was a required control of property. Now, maybe this is a question for Jay, but I do agree with Paul that this is a sort of an unresolved thing, and I don't feel like saying the applicant, this is a two-party and needs to be handled post-permit. So I don't know if you wanted to, Jay, is that something that Jay could add to, or what, did I miss something at the beginning that resolved this?
You didn't miss anything today, but we discussed this, I did and Jay did as well, 1 or 2 meetings ago, when, I said, and I think Jay agreed with me, that site control is separate from title. Site control is having an agreement to lease or purchase the property, and that is what the applicant has. The state has issued a project eligibility letter reviewing that, agreeing that they have that evidence of site control. And we're not allowed to discuss the detail of this. We agreed to do that. We agreed to that with Ms. Hicks and our attorney, so I'm not going to get into any details. But there is a right-of-way over the property. If any part of the approved, we're asking you to approve a plan. You approve the plan. If we need to make any changes to that plan because of anything that happens down the road, we have to come back to you for that. And it truly is, as I said, it is a title matter to be handled between the two parties. It's not part of the comprehensive permit process But there is absolutely evidence of site control for us being here.
So you disagree, because this was read today, you disagree with the last sentence. The applicant has not achieved the required control of property to construct the project as proposed, and therefore the application should be.
I disagree with that completely. She is incorrect.
Jay, how about you? Do you have, thank you for reminding me, you talked about it previously, but can you remind us what you think of that?
Yeah, I think this is a close question that has kind of confounded municipal practitioners over the years, but where it has settled out is closer to what Andrew is saying. I'm not sure I agree with it entirely, but I do agree that they have demonstrated adequate control of the site to build what they want to build. I think the tricky part here is I think that it's foreseeable, because the plans right now show no intersection whatsoever with an access to the adjacent property at all. Even if they don't make any changes to their plan and they have the same access, if there was another way that was intersecting with their way in some way, shape, or form, I think that that is a change too, because their plans don't show any mixed access. So no matter what they do, if there's a solution for the adjacent property, have to be resolved through a project change. Now, it may be an insubstantial project change because it doesn't affect anything, or it may be a substantial project change because we might have a driveway intersecting with their driveway, and that could be cause for concern or need for relocation or reorientation of that way. If, on the other hand, they resolve things in a way that provides some kind of alternative off-site access to the adjacent property owner, then fine. I don't think it's anything we have to worry about. But right now, their plans don't show any access to the adjacent property, which is fine. They don't have to do that. But if it is at all foreseeable, or if it comes to pass that they do have to show that kind of access on their site, then at the very least, they're going to have to request an insubstantial change, if not a substantial change, depending upon exactly what they're doing. So I doubt Andrew disagrees with that much. So there we are.
I agree with what Jay said.
Okay. All right, thank you. So then the next one I want to talk about is the access drive. Now, I agree with you. There was a lot of discussion. It was confusing. And in the write-up, you said this has generated some confusion. But for me, it's not about it being a public way or not a public way. It's about the fact that it is an entryway. And I feel like the confusion that's been lost. This is the entryway into the community. And I frankly don't care who owns it or who is responsible for it. But the fact that there is parking in an entryway is what I thought the gist of the planning board was getting at. Now, they brought up the ownership of it, but I don't want to be distracted by that. I have concerns. I found out tonight it's 9 parking spots. And I think personally, you're a little bit short because of the location on parking anyway. And this creates more concern for me. So I see, Joe, you're standing up there. Did you want to?
Well, I'll start. This is something our traffic engineer had looked at, and I believe the peer reviewer as well, and they were fine with that. The only issue that came up was, I think, the nomenclature. If it was like a town street, that wouldn't be allowed, but off a driveway was perfectly fine.
Yeah, and I would just say we're maintaining 50 feet from the stop bar, and that's what we see as a safe distance from people turning in and having an issue with, running into a car.
So you think because of the width of it, that it's?
It's the distance from the entrance to the first parking space. That's what I was looking at.
But I guess what I'm saying is that this is the entryway to the curved entryway, not just the intersection with Meeting House Road. Cars are coming in and out of there. I disagree with the assertion that it's like any other parking pulling in and out within the complex, because these are cars coming in and out of and you even use the word entryway in all of your narrative. It's the entryway to the complex. You say it yourself. So I wanted to just make sure that I understood. I am not concerned about who owns it and that aspect of it, and I didn't want that to be deflecting from the safety issue, which I thought the planning board was bringing up with, parking being there and pulling in and out of parking while cars are coming into the complex that may not be parking there, but going to visit someone.
Sure, and I would just add that the road is 24 feet wide, so we have 12-foot lanes on each side. And a lot of projects, we'll go down to 20 feet or 22. So we bumped this up in the beginning of the project because it was a comment from the town way back in the initial
So 24
phases.
feet plus the parking spots. Yeah.
Correct, yes.
All right, so thank you for that. That was my concern there. I still want to think about that, but that I want to move on to. So Joe, this is another question about the parking spaces, only because it was in the planning board, and maybe you can just explain it, but there was a comment there, but the planning board had about, they call it the curb, the overhang, and so because of the overhang, you don't really have what is the typical or the required 5 feet, you have 4 feet. Can you just explain why that's sufficient? It was the planning board comment, yeah.
Sure, the sidewalks are 5.5 feet wide, so typically they're only 4 feet, but we've got an extra half foot there.
Well, it's 5.5, it says, excuse me for it, it says it's 5.5 feet wide, but because the vehicle overhang is 1.5 feet, subtracted from the 5.5, you're left with 4 foot. Is that?
4 feet, yeah, that's adequate. You can actually go down to, I believe, 2.5 feet at a pinch point in a sidewalk and still meet the ADA accessibility. That's at a pinch point, so if you have a intrusion or something, you still can meet it with that.
So the planning board pointing this out was just a recommendation that 5 is better, but 4 is okay? Is that what you're saying?
That's how I see it, yes.
Okay, all right. I want to also talk about the sidewalk, which is on page 3 of the planning board, all the way at the bottom. So this has been the topic we've talked about the most. My comments on it are, in summary, the west side sidewalk has been too costly to Penrose for consideration. The east, because of the grading and the length of it. And the east side has the mid-block issue that your traffic engineer pointed out. And it's also not on Penrose property, so that was the problem with the east side sidewalk. And then there was a suggestion brought up by a board member at the last hearing, or one of our last hearings, about having a shorter, less problematic from a grading building perspective, much shorter, 1/3 of the length, parallel to the bike path. And I didn't see any follow-up to that other than discussion that really isn't, I guess, necessary. So no sidewalk, nothing on the east, nothing on the west, nothing parallel to the rail trail. It is just the rail trail. And I brought this up last time, and I agree also with what Paul said. You refer to this, the path for the residents as an amenity, and yet other times in context, Rio, for example, has talked about it as the only entryway. It's not an amenity, it's the only entryway in and out of the property. So I talked about that last time to just get a little reconciliation, and Andrew, you did respond. But I bring it up again because I do have a concern about the sidewalk. I have concerns about, I asked the engineer at the last meeting about, is it considered a mid-block issue to be going into folks that are either walking or mostly they're going to be on their bikes. Now, it is getting closer to the crosswalk where they're slowing down, but it's still, it's not a motor vehicle, but it's a moving, vehicle that could create conflict with a pedestrian who's crossing over. So I wondered if there was any consideration to Ms. Hovey's suggestion at a previous hearing about the shorter sidewalk that would take, the reason would be safety away from bikers.
So the bullet above, the bullet you just referred to, actually answers the question you just said, and this is the plan we submitted at last meeting, which is Ms. Hovey's proposal. And Mark can discuss the issues with it, because it raises many of the same issues that the west side of Meeting House Road does because of the terrain, and I'll let Mark address it further, but we did respond.
Yeah,
Thanks,
no,
Andrew.
I'm sorry, you did, yeah.
For the record, Mark Warfel, landscape architect with Crowley Cottrell. Yeah, so this figure shows in orange that parallel path to the extent that would be possible on the project's property. So shown in the red dashed line is the property boundary. And as you get closer to Meeting House, there's an abutter's property that crosses over the end of the rail trail. So when we looked at this, we showed a parallel path as far as we could go while accommodating grading on our site, and shown in the sort of pink overlay color is the extent at which there would need to be site clearing and grading to accommodate that path. So what we summarized was that this solution didn't gain you much more, you weren't much more closer to the Meeting House intersection, but with a lot of cons in the grading and the rework of the drainage and loss of existing trees.
Much shorter, though, than the Meeting House, and it is the primary issue because of the ownership of that bottom piece that belongs to the doctor's office next door, or someone else?
Well, we can't go onto his property.
Right, but
anything we
we
do.
talked about doing the east side, which would require communications with the church. By the way, that's a question I have. Have there been discussions between the town and the church during this process at all?
I have no, we don't know. If they have, we're not been privy to them.
Has Penrose talked to the town about, so it's sort of, I agree with the comment Lee made. It's an interesting, the Penrose, the town, the church would be looking at would be looking at the option for the east
Well, I don't
side
completely agree with that. I think the way you should frame it, I think, is that the town would be looking at what it can do to have a sidewalk on the east side. It would need it would either need to do an eminent domain taking or have an easement from whatever property owner or owners are on that side of the road. Let's say you're going to run the sidewalk from there all the way up to Four Corners. You know, wherever that sidewalk is going to go, the town would be doing it, and the town would need to get easements or eminent domain from whomever they needed. In this case, if you were only doing this lower end, I think it's only the church, because I think their property goes down to the rail trail, you know, to the parking lot. And so it might only be them, but it's not something I think that's an agreement between the town, Penrose, and the church. I think it's a project that the town would be doing upon which the church and Penrose would be involved. It's a semantic change, but I think it's an important legal
well, no, then
distinction.
I respectfully, I disagree with that. I think we're talking about Penrose's project. It is flawed because of the sidewalk, according to a lot of comments and board members. And we have spent the vast majority of our time talking about the sidewalks. So if it is an option for the development to move forward, to have a sidewalk, and the shorter one is not a good option, and the westbound one is I definitely see that being much more expensive because of the grading, then I don't understand why it is the town's responsibility. It's your project. So I think that it should be a discussion between Penrose and the town, and I think Penrose should be paying for it. I don't think it's the town's responsibility to put that in. If you need that for your project, it's your responsibility to put it in. That's my opinion.
And we respectfully disagree that we need it for this project. There is access. There is a 24-foot wide drive that was just referred to that goes out to Meeting House Road. The applicant's proposing a bus stop. They've agreed to talk to the RTA about getting additional bus route. They've agreed to, help arrange and obtain ride shares if necessary. They've proposed the connector path, whatever you want to call it. It's something else that goes out to public infrastructure. They've agreed to build a sidewalk segment that the town, apparently in South Chatham, have desperately wanted for years, where it's feasible to do from the bike trail around to 28. To say that this project doesn't have safe access to the public infrastructure, I think is just wrong. Could it be better? Could there be more access? There can always be more. But you have a project here that we respectfully believe stands on its merits with vehicular, pedestrian, bus, all of them, access to the public infrastructure. So we just respectfully have a difference of opinion.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I think that was a continuation of that one, and I think that was my last one. I agree with Steve about the generator. I don't think one is sufficient, but thank you. Those were my comments for today.
Thank you.
If I could, Chair, could I respond back to Ed and his
Absolutely.
comment about linkage?
Yeah.
I mean, we do feel that have been treated differently than other developers. I know Ed disagreed with it. He mentioned linkage. And that is true. There is a lot of communities that require linkage, and this would be similar to linkage, but that's usually codified in the ZBA. It's not brought up ad hoc in meetings. So if it was like codified in the ZBA that applicants have to shovel town infrastructure or things like that, then we know everybody's being treated the same. But from my understanding, I don't think there's anything that what we're being asked to do in regards to the bike path that's being asked by anybody else who connects to the bike path.
Or other developments. And I don't believe, and I can stand to be corrected by either Jay, who's here, Jay Briggs or Jay Talaman, I don't believe, to Rio's point, that there's anything codified in the zoning bylaw about linkage expressly. Just to confirm what you said.
Okay. Anyone else have any additional comments or questions before we? Okay. So, Sarah, do you agree that once we're satisfied that we've asked our questions and made our comments about conditions, that we will close the hearing today?
Yes, if the board is satisfied, if they feel that the applicant has answered everything, or do you want them to respond to, you want generators in each building, and they can say yes or no. That way, town council and I will be able to draft a decision letter, well, for next hearing, or next, the 20th, it won't be a hearing at that point anymore. It'll just be deliberations, but that way we know what to put in, whether the applicant would even accept those, or if it's something that would cause them to consider it uneconomic and appeal the decision.
Okay. So do we start with the motion to close?
Do you want Andrew to respond to any of the things that you guys have suggested for conditions, or no?
Well, I guess I would have a similar comment regarding the generators. If that's not a requirement for every other residential housing development, then that we feel that shouldn't be imposed as a requirement on this project.
And would feel, to put that in legalese, would feel that a requirement to have a generator in every building would be uneconomic, whereas they're trying to address the concern that was raised by having something in the management office to have something, which is not generally happened in other sites. Thank you.
Close the hearing.
Motion.
Yeah, motion to,
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave seconds and votes yes.
All vote yes?
Ginny votes yes.
I vote yes.
I vote yes.
Okay, deliberations. Would anyone like to start? In addition to what you've shared, you want to summarize or start with you, Paul?
I have nothing that I want to add to that at this point. I assume that the applicant is going to move to continue it to August 20th, or we are, one of the two.
It'll be us.
So I'll move to continue, well, if you want to poll other people on the board, you can poll other people on the board if they have more deliberations right now, but my thought would be we'd continue it to the 20th.
So just so the board is aware, on the 20th, we have to adjourn our meeting by 5 o'clock at the latest. Meaning that would be the only day you would have to deliberate, review the decision, everything. Our timetable, we have to have our final decision done by September 8th now at this point, which gives us 2 more Thursdays to have.
It's actually 40 days.
Right, so from today, so that would bring us to September 8th. No, calendar days, correct?
Yeah, 40 calendar days.
So Paul, are you saying we should wait on deliberations?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out here, whether we have the time to do that or whether we should go ahead with deliberations at this point.
Well, I thought that we needed to have some things for Jay to put together so that we could respond and fine tune any of that at the.
But we don't need deliberations for Jay because we've done,
All of this.
we've done the waivers, we've done concerns and so forth. I mean, I could go either way, but it's a time thing. But Sarah, let's say we do start our next meeting at 2 o'clock, or 1 o'clock, or 12 o'clock. I mean, we need to think through that so there is enough time. The fact that we got to get out of here at 5, okay, we know that's the final point, but that doesn't mean we can't start at 12 and
Correct.
bring a lunch.
So the 40 days is September 15th. We are unable to meet on September 10th. That's why I said there are 2 Thursdays left that we don't have a regular meeting available for the board to deliberate and review the decision before it gets stamped in with the clerk.
How does everybody feel about deliberations right now without answers, as opposed to waiting until the 20th? And then you'll have answers, and that might help you with deliberations. I don't know. Does that, it makes sense to me. I mean, if you want to go ahead with deliberations, okay. But it's clean if we wait. As opposed to a deliberation now and say, well, I might say this, that, or another thing, but, well, I might change my mind, or I might need that. I don't know. You know? How do y'all feel?
I would be open to starting the meeting on the 20th a little early and waiting to then to deliberate.
11 o'clock? No, I'm only kidding. But, okay, let's say 1 o'clock. 1 to 5, in 4 hours? Can't we do our deliberations? But Ginny,
Yeah, I think.
you're the big,
Yeah,
you're the one that,
I think we've done a lot of discussion, comments, questions, and frankly, deliberations. It's a little different than a normal hearing where it's more cut and dry. There's things that we're learning. So I think it would be helpful to digest the things that the rebuttal that Mr. Singer gave and Penrose Associates gave. Regroup on how important these things are to you and how that would, today we got a sense of how these things, where they stand and how these would influence our vote.
can start at 1 o'clock?
Yeah, start at 1.
Start at 1 on the 20th?
I don't think we're going to need 4 hours, but
That good? Dave? Is that okay?
Yeah, I
We
could start
we can
anytime.
always do a second night, or second set of deliberations. We have until September. I'm not asking for extra meetings, but it's not like we have to finish
Okay, thank you, Jay.
on
Okay,
the 20th.
Yeah, I mean, I could start at 1. But so just because I'm getting confused here a little bit. So we've had a lot of discussion today about possible conditions and things that, and some indications, some of our parts of what we might want to see. So what we're doing, say now, is we're going to kick the deliberations to the 20th, at which point we will, when do we finalize the actual condition? That's when we would vote on what conditions we would want to attach, and Jay would put those in, or I'm a little confused about where we're going here.
Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, but shouldn't we plan on finalizing conditions as well as deliberations on the 20th?
Again, I don't think you have to finalize. It
Okay.
just puts more pressure on you to do things after that. Look, I think that if Sarah and I are starting to draft in advance of the 20th, we're going to draft it because I think we're hearing that more or less as an approval with conditions. The scope of the areas that still have to be discussed in terms of some of the pressure points here are pretty small in number. They're significant in terms of the importance to the board, but if, for example, we take the issue regarding sidewalks, there's a spectrum of views on the board. I can't sit here and say which is the prevailing view, but I think we can come up with language around those few things there just for your view. Now, when we get before you, you can toss all of that in the garbage and say, we want to go in a different direction here. That's fine. I have a list that I was keeping today of some other issues that you mentioned as well, management, slightly lesser big ticket items, the generators, a few other items that are predictable. I think we know what the big ticket items here in terms of what we're going to discuss in more depth, and we did that with respect to the other project as well. And I think that that's what we're going to focus on. I'm going to give it my best shot to draft either one or more versions of what it may look like in terms of sidewalks or not sidewalks. Maybe I'll give a few different versions and we'll have that discussion. If it's not resolved, then we'll go back to the drawing board and just make sure that we do whatever we have to do by the 15th. So there's no set requirements of what we accomplish on the 20th. We should make progress. And Sarah and I will try and give you all the tools you need, knowing, however, we're going to defer to you on these issues that have generated a few different opinions amongst the board members.
So, given that, I think 1 o'clock would be, we're not going to be having public input, so it's just going to be amongst us. If we started at 1 and even if we went all the way to 5 and there was still some, I don't think we would go that long, but I think so, yeah.
And we can lock the door too at 5 and keep them out. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
I will move to continue the hearing to August 20th.
Well, continuing, we already voted going to deliberation.
It's not the hearing, we're just scheduling.
Schedule.
That's what we're
Move
continuing.
to reschedule for August 20th.
Okay.
Do you need a time?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
David seconds, votes yes.
All vote yes.
Jenny votes yes.
I vote yes.
I vote yes.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. We'll see you on the 20th.
We'll move to adjourn.
Ed seconds and votes yes.
All vote yes.
Jenny votes yes.
Yes.
Steve votes yes.
I vote yes.
And Dave votes yes.
Dave votes yes. Yeah, what did I just do? What did we just do?
Adjourn.
To adjourn. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm trying to get to it. It is 4:53 PM.